comment, because it'll come up quite a bit, is you will see my slide about do not plan on doing everything I say, that what I'm giving you is a buffet from which you can probably only take one or two entrees. You can't do them all. Do not get over all that. And this is one you easily could get overwhelmed, because so much is happening in 8 days that it's really easy. And I just want to emphasize that. And there are several places I'm going to mention that I have videos, short videos, about 2 minutes long, explaining the various days: Palm Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday. I will send those to you. You are welcome to use them as is, but if you do, or my hope is they'll generate some thoughts and you'll want to do your own, but that may be too much right now. And so if you want to use these just as is, that's fine. But I would encourage you to send me your information, and like Monday, Thursday, what time is your service, what's going to be involved, that kind of thing. And then I will put it in text on the screen so that people will get that information as they're watching the video. Now, one change for me is that I used to put a slide at the end of the video talking about your church, and I might still do that, but in studying the analytics, very, very, very few people watch to the very end, no matter how short it is. So now I'm trying to get the key information on the screen in the first 20 to 30 seconds. So they'll at least know you're having a Monday, Thursday service at 7 p.m. or whatever, and we'll at least have a chance to get that information out. So those are kind of overriding thoughts I just wanted to get out. All right, well, let's open with prayer, and let us pray. Blessed and loving Lord, I thank you for these people who are interested in reaching out and helping others know about your love for them. I thank you for all the people that have been involved in these efforts. Now I ask you to encourage us, inspire us, and to instruct us on how to do this ministry in the way you want it done. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I will mute you, and then we'll go to screen share. Paul? Okay, and let me do it as a show so it shows up a little bigger. Okay, and I sent out, but I realized I don't have all of your emails. So if at some point you would maybe put them in the chat, Shirley will take them down. And I send out the PDFs for these. I will send out the final ones tomorrow anyway. So you'll have all these slides. And our agenda for today, and I always believe in taking a moment and looking back at the structure. What are we doing overall? And then seeing how we're specifically talking about today fits into that structure. And today, the particular focus is Holy Week. We'll talk about, in general, we'll talk about Palm Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and special activities, which may or may not apply to any of you, and then Easter itself. So the goals is that we will remind ourselves of what our goals are and are not. We will be reminded of the potential your church has to reach new people, and the overall process and flow, and how that all works together. Now, it's really important to realize we got in very, very broad terms. There's obviously every person is unique, but in very broad terms, we can say that there are the group of people who are not attending who are previously churched. These are people most likely older, say above 50, who grew up in the church or at least attended a church a lot, and that habit is still in there somewhere. And then you have the people who never really had much church background at all. They may have gone a few times. They may even be baptized, but there's not that background. And these are two very different groups. Basically, what we're going to talk about is the never churched, because if we touch them, we'll have provided the previously churched with everything they need. And what's not going to happen is we're not going to talk about stopping random people on the street or knocking on random doors. And we won't be talking about how to answer the basic, the deep questions about salvation theory or anything like that. That's in the future. This is about building the relationship that would make answering those questions or discussing those questions possible. So our goals are not to increase attendance and budget for two very broad reasons. One, Jesus said never said anything about either of those, but also they're selfish. If we're worried about attendance and budget, we're worried about ourselves, not them. And that comes across. That's not love. Focusing on us is not love. It's interesting. I love Bishop Curry's statement that the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is selfishness. So our goal is to help people grow closer to God. And if we do that, if we show God's love, then very likely our attendance and budget will improve, but that's a nice fringe benefit. Here's what I mentioned. You will not do everything. Stop and pick what seems most important to you and just do that. Do one thing well rather than trying to do three things and none of them are done well. Do not overwhelm yourself. And please know you're never alone. The only time I get upset is if you stop because you're confused or have a question and you didn't ask me. That doesn't mean I'll always have an answer, but we can at least talk it through and figure a way out. So why aren't our naves full of people? Why don't people love us anymore? Why won't they even talk to us? Well, there's a number of reasons. One of them is we're not living in the 50s and 60s. And there's a lot of people in our churches that they would deny this, but they're still in that mindset. They're still in the mindset that everyone is expected to go to church. All you had to do was build a building, announce service times, and people walked in the door. Maybe that was good. There were some good things about that era. There's some bad things about that era. It doesn't matter because it's just no longer true. And part of the reason for that is what the word church now means. Here's four things fairly recent in the news. Top left, Southern Baptist pastors call for banning of female pastors. You may have seen just in the last couple of days, they kicked out one of their largest churches out of the Southern Baptist Convention because it had a female pastor. Then the one below that, if the government is dropping a $5 million fine on the Church of the Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints, and people don't distinguish between that and other Christians, and we can debate whether they're Christian or not another time, but it just says this church is extremely, extremely, extremely wealthy while there's so many poor people in the world. Then the top right, we have the Christian conservatives defending the youth pastor that dated a 14-year-old. And the one below, you'd have to read the whole thing, but the bottom line is Joel Osteen says he makes a salary of $54 million from church profits. That's just hard to believe. But in the middle, I point out that churches are dominated by politics, or at least that's what people think. And that's politics on both sides. It's not one side or another. So would you want to be part of that group of people? I sure wouldn't. But the good news is that's not true of your church. The bad news is that our audience, both the previously churched and the totally unchurched, think it's a true picture of us. So our challenge is to intrigue them enough to listen so we can tell them and show them. And the challenge we have, of course, is all the busyness in people's lives. We were just talking about this earlier. So do we have any potential to reach new people? And the answer is absolutely yes. And we're actually working, TriTank and I are working on a white paper to talk about some churches that have been very successful. One of the churches in New Jersey has gone from an average attendance of, I think they had around 15, 16, 17, and now they're in the mid-30s. So they basically have doubled in 18 months. And some of the things they're doing are unique for their circumstance, but a lot of them are things we can learn from. So it's certainly possible if we're willing to do the work. And I like to draw, I just had total shoulder replacement. So I keep on going back to rehabilitation. The only real important thing about rehab is doing the work. One therapist can give you one set of exercise, another therapist can give you another set. It isn't the magic of the exercise, it's doing the work. Well, same thing here. And the good news is, unlike the exercises they gave me, this is not difficult, it's not expensive, and it's not time consuming. And unlike the exercises, it doesn't cause a lot of pain. Anyway, very briefly, about 90% of Americans believe in a higher power. And all the work, all the surveys that have done have come out right in that range. About 25 to 35% of them have a fulfilling spiritual home. Now, the gap there is because of some definitional issues. Is the person who comes in on Easter and Christmas, are they members of the church, and do they have fulfilling spiritual homes? I don't think so. I put them in the previously church category, but a lot of people put them in the members category. So that's why you get such a wide range. Of course, we have many Americans who believe in a higher power, but they're not going to do anything to deepen their spiritual lives. They're just not going to make any effort. But what that means is about 1 in 3 Americans believe in God, have some interest in deepening their spiritual lives, and they will talk to us if they know the conversation will be respectful. That's one of the key things they are cautious about. They don't want to come in and be attacked, insulted, that kind of thing. But what that requires is we have to build a relationship with them that encourages that kind of trust. So in summary, and by the way, I have papers on all this kind of thing. If they'd be helpful for you or your vestry or whatever, just ask. Despite all these negatives, 1 in 3 people near you are willing to talk. And some people say it's 1 in 4, some say it's 1 in 2. Again, definitional issues, but something around a third of the people near you are willing to talk. They're not anxious to do so. If they were, they'd already be there. They're very cautious. As I said, they're afraid of being attacked. They already have an overloaded calendar, as we were talking earlier. They're listening to this as they're driving to pick up kids. They're probably not ready to attend on Sunday, but the previously churched might use a visit on Sunday as a test. They'll come in because that is their background. But if approached with love, they're all willing to talk. So here's the basic flow. People must be intrigued enough to look at us. In the midst of all the craziness going in their life, they've got to be willing to give us a minute or two. Through that, learn enough to know us a little, discover they may like us, discover they probably can trust us, then they may interact with us on a more personal level, and then they may build a relationship with us. So we've got to go through this. And this is the chronological order. As I say, for the previously churched, that those first 4 might be collapsed into dropping in fairly early in the process, but it varies. But the important thing to remember is that last step is what it's all about, and that's building a relationship. If we don't do that, if we don't get their contact information and then stay in touch with them, I won't say we've wasted our time, but pretty much. The odds of anybody actually connecting with us in a long term are real close to 0. So this is just a quickie on the various stages. Stage 1, the intrigue stage. A funnel is a good image for this. You can easily reach 10,000 people through social media and other things. A very tiny number of those will end up being interested in building a connection with us. But if that's just 0.1%, that means 10 new families. So that's pretty significant. What we have to remember is that that's not a one-time thing. It doesn't mean we show something to 10,000 people, we're going to have 10 new families. It means over and over and over again. And this is a problem, because one of the biggest problems we run into is the church leadership can become discouraged because they say, hey, we posted an ad, we spent $30 and the pews aren't full. They'll say it isn't worth the effort. It takes time. It didn't take long for the people to leave the church, but it takes time to bring them back. Then stage 2 is what we're talking about today, specifically on Holy Week, but it's ways we interact with them. And the interesting thing is there's lots of things we're already doing we just aren't thinking about as an outreach type of opportunity. So we may sell cookbooks. The church in New Jersey I mentioned uses Messy Church, which is a great way for a small church to ease into having something for Sunday school. And it's a great way to bring people in from outside the community, outside the church community. You can offer to pray for loved ones at various times, but particularly All Saints Day. And then we have special events. I'll talk a little bit about Blessing of Gardens, but the Burning of Palms for Ash Wednesday, Ashes to Go, Lenten programs. A lot of that stuff's over now, but just as examples. And yes, we do remind them of worship opportunities, including Sunday, but we do it gently and we don't do it every week. But we also, if we're doing something unusual, the church in Rochester, New York does Jazz Vespers. It's really kind of a neat service. I really like it. It's this Friday, I think at 5:15. You can look it up on 5:15 Eastern. You can look it up on their website. A number of churches, including several that I don't mention here, are doing Taizé services. These are the kind of things that people who are cautious about connecting with the standard church might be willing to take as their first step in. And then build a relationship. As I mentioned, this is most important. If we ghost them, if we treat them as if they're ghosts, in other words, don't pay any attention to them, it's extremely unlikely we will see them again. If we do stay in touch, then our odds of being effective increase. I recommend weekly texts. They're easy, they're inexpensive, high probability they'll be read. And I am more than happy to work with any church in doing that. I'll do most of the work and pay the fee for smaller churches. One of the things that we've been doing and had a fair amount of success with is reaching back to maybe a year or a year and a half worth of any contacts, even though we haven't, they left their information a year ago and we haven't touched base with them since then. We go ahead and reach back and touch them. And I'm not promising this for any given church, but I've been shocked that 80-90% of the people have stayed in the system. They have not opted out. So that says to me they're honestly interested in at least knowing that they got that curiosity. We've intrigued them a little bit. So now we'll move on to Holy Week. And the general discussion is one of the beauties of Holy Week that we probably don't think about is there's a lot of phrases and words that we use that are just not well known. And Holy Week is one of them. If you didn't grow up Roman Catholic, Episcopal, to some extent Lutheran, occasionally Methodist and Presbyterian, the phrase isn't used. So that makes it a great way to create interest. The best way to get people to look at social media is a question, and it's a question about something they don't know about, so they want to learn about. So a post highlighted, what is Holy Week? And there should be a question mark there, is certainly a great way to go. Then you might use a short example. And this is one of the videos I'll send to you. I would run this if you wanted to do it the week before Holy Week starts or even earlier because you got so much you want to talk about in Holy Week. This isn't bad for a paid post. If you don't know what a boost is, I have a video that explains it and how to do it. It basically takes your post and turns it into an ad. It's very easy to use. But a more important thing is to focus on church shares. If you want to increase your outreach, you want to increase your coverage, the free way to do it is to get people in your congregation to share. And jump down a couple paragraphs. Recruit 5 or more members to promise to share. Then maybe you set up an email group, send them a message that a post is up. If they don't see it, they can go to the church Facebook page and comment and share from there. But once we do that, once we start doing that, Facebook says, hey, this is interesting. 4 people thought it was interesting enough to comment and share on it. And then Facebook says, wow, I ought to show this to more people. You can try, and this, it's not clear how well this works, but it certainly doesn't hurt. But probably in your first comment, put @everyone. I don't know if you've ever used the @ sign, but if you wanted to send something, you wanted somebody in particular to see something, you could put @Ken Kroohs, all one word, not separated, and it will show up on my post, on my screen. And if you do @everyone, in theory, and sometimes it seems to work and sometimes it doesn't. So I would do it, but I can't promise anything. It'll show up to all the people on your that are friends or have liked your page. It doesn't normally go to everyone who's liked your page. It goes to a small percentage of them. Facebook wants you to spend money and turn it into an ad. Always good to include an ask. Please share so others will know, but also ask them. Say, @Ken Kroohs, is Maundy Thursday service important to you? Then I'm encouraged to respond. Again, if you phrase it as a question, most Facebook groups, and again, if you're not using Facebook groups, ask me for the video on that. That's one of the most powerful ways you can reach out, is Facebook groups. A great way to get some of this stuff done is to think about shut-ins in your congregation. Many of them are on Facebook a lot. So they would be, if they'd be willing to do this, they can do it. It's something they can do to help the church, and many of them want to do something to help the church. Remember, though, in Facebook groups, some of them have to be approved. Some of the posts have to be approved by the administrator, which means it could take a couple days. So make sure you give yourself that time. Holy Week is a great topic for your weekly text that I mentioned earlier. I would probably do it about 10 days before, which would be March 30th. So when you get to the April 7th text, I usually do it Friday afternoon, or Friday morning, excuse me. You can use that for Palm Sunday rather than using that for Holy Week. And typically I say only do 1 text a week, but during Holy Week, you may send out as many as 3. It's just a busy time. And I don't think that'll come across as spam if we just do it once in a great while. Palm Sunday. Something I find fascinating is some research suggests that because people travel over Easter, you're more likely to see inactive members or not frequently active members for Palm Sunday than for Easter. Remember, your inactive members see notices on social media just as much as your never members. So it's important to promote Palm Sunday. And one of the things that's happened in many churches is that, and that I didn't expect, but when it makes sense once it happened, is that these people who left over COVID, all of a sudden they start to see their church being mentioned in different ways. And it's still their church, even though they haven't come back. And then they're more likely to say, hey, there's something happening at this place. Maybe I ought to go take a look. Again, comment and shares are particularly important when reaching the inactive members. Your active members, be they shut-ins or others, probably have some of your inactive members on their friends list. So if they comment and share, it gets shown to them. Always need attention grabbing graphics and headlines. And when you do one, if you think one's particularly good, please share so other people can do it. Again, questions work well. A couple themes you could do. One would be focusing on the palms themselves. Why are palm branches used in church? Why make a big deal about palms? Another option that I like personally, but probably doesn't work well for people who don't know the readings for Palm Sunday, would be to focus on the schizophrenic nature of the readings. I love preaching on that. From celebration to conviction, Jesus' journey. And you could change that to a question. Why did Jesus go in this pathway? Remember, your texts are to go primarily to people with relatively little or a new connection to the church. Therefore, be really careful about jargon. All right? Palm Sunday, I guess you can get away with, but Maundy, Thursday is definitely jargon. Good Friday, to some extent, is jargon. This is one I would consider a paid boost for, partially because, again, for previously church people, whether they're members of yours or other places, this is an important day. But that depends on your budget, and I'll talk about budget in a few minutes. Wednesday, if your Lenten program concludes this week, just continue whatever you're doing, but I wouldn't recommend doing anything particularly special. You just have too much else happening during the week, unless you got something very special going on, like you're concluding with a guest speaker or something like that. Save your efforts, save their attention for these other days. All right, Maundy, Thursday, one of my favorite days of the church calendar. That's just personal. How in the world can you get all this across in a couple posts? You have the foot washing, you have the stripping of the altar, you have the Last Supper, you have New Commandment. I would recommend you pick one, focus on, and sneak in the mention of the others. Say, talk about the New Commandment and say, and to help show this, we'll do a foot washing. Something like that. I vacillate personally between foot washing and stripping of the altar as most meaningful for me. But if our focus is on people who are cautious about the church, foot washing is likely to generate some interest just because it seems so weird. Stripping of the altar, powerful though it is for churchgoers, is meaningless if you have little relation with Jesus or the church. And I would consider meaningless even those who have some church background. If they haven't been in touch with the church in 7, 8, 10 years, I would guess the stripping of the altar is probably not very meaningful. The visual and tactile aspect of foot washing can be important. It can be a great thing for a video. And I want to say something about videos you produce. Do them, we all think we have this really good-looking, pretty sanctuary. Well, you don't want to show it off by itself. You need people. Always have people. In every video, every photo, have as many people as you can reasonably work in. That's what people want to connect with, is other people. So you could do a video about why wash each other's feet, and the visual part of that could be the foot washing going on, and you can stage it in the sanctuary. So in the background, they see how pretty your sanctuary is, or at least what it looks like. So they come in and it feels a little bit comfortable because they've seen it. Actually, though, probably for cautious people, the New Commandment might be the one they're most interested in. And again, great reason for a post. What in the world is a Maundy? And to talk about, we can use that and spin off. We focus on Jesus's commandment to love, care for one another. I think it's very important to emphasize the love means caring for people rather than warm, fuzzy feelings. One of the phrases I like is Jesus told me to love other people, to care for other people. Jesus never told me I have to like anyone. And frankly, I'm glad of that because there's a lot of people I don't like. Maundy, Thursday continued. One way to approach it is do something that inspires others. Ask the question. And again, have people in your congregation ready to answer it, ready to put it. Don't leave it just hanging there. Go ahead and ask the question. When have you seen someone caring for, loving their neighbor? And maybe you can say, we're going to share some of the answers during our service. Maybe a short meditation video with members sharing when they saw somebody loving a neighbor. And this can be important, particularly in smaller communities, because if they know that John Smith goes to the church, they're more likely to go because they know John Smith. If you're doing the foot washing, that may be worth a boost since that's something people wonder about. If you focus on the new commandment, as I say, if you have an interesting approach, you can do it. One thing that I've been chewing on for just the last couple, 3-4 years is the concept that Jesus washed Judas's feet. I don't know if you want to get there with that, but to me, that's a fascinating thought. All right. I've shown you a lot of stuff, so I slid this back in again. Hey, please be careful. And remember, for every one of these, although we hope people will see them and come a-running, the primary goal is to introduce the church to the community. A person may need to hear something positive about the church 7 to 10 times before they visit. That's probably not as many for the previously church, but more than once, most likely. So even though we're introducing the church to the community, definitely include your schedule information, address, things like that. Remember that when you post on your church page, that shows your church name. Posts on Facebook groups may not. So make sure you put that information on their posts, on those posts. Good Friday, another great one to talk about. And even your members probably can't say why it's called good. They'll come up with some kind of answer, but they probably don't know. What's interesting is there's 2 answers that are given. And the one I think is probably accurate is it grows out of the Old English, the 1600s, for God's Friday. That makes a lot of sense to me. And that's the one I generally use. But some people argue it means good as in blessed Friday. This is a great post. Jesus died, so how can we call it Good Friday? And a short video again on that can be very interesting. This I think generates enough interest. I would consider a paid post. This would be one of the higher priorities in my mind for the budget. Okay, special activities, which could be Holy Saturday or could be another time. And I don't know what each of you have and are doing, so I'll just run through these. And the key thing I want you to hear is things you are already doing or have available. Ask yourselves how you can use these to reach out to new people. A labyrinth is not well understood, so an explanatory video. But again, show people. It frustrates me how many churches have a picture of their labyrinth with nobody on it. That's not inviting. You might do an explanatory workshop, again, possibly Good Friday, possibly on Saturday, and then do a walk. But no matter what you do, be hospitable. Offer water, maybe cookies, whatever. This is a good boost opportunity because it's unknown. Stations of the Cross. This is done by more churches than the labyrinth, of course. Again, not well understood. It's a great topic to explain. Again, show people. Don't just show an icon or two. Show people walking it. And if you need to stage it, do that. And if possible, have more than one person. Have a small crowd walking. This can be particularly attractive to inactive or former Roman Catholics. Now, the Northwest doesn't have as many of them as the Northeast, but you still have a good chunk of them, particularly Hispanic, which I know is more Southern California, but I'm sure there's some in Northern California too. And again, offer it as a group exercise, even if it's open all the time. Be hospitable. When you do anything, whether it's just a plain post or a boost, mention the booklets are available. Don't expect people to, or don't think people will just say, oh, I'll go there and figure out something to do. And large Roman Catholic population, worth a boost. Prayer vigil, I'm less likely to do a whole lot with that from an advertising point of view, unless it's a specific topic like ending poverty, peace, reducing gun violence. If it's just a general prayer vigil, that's a wonderful thing to do, but it probably won't generate a whole lot of interest outside the congregation. Easter egg hunt. If you want to reach new people, new families, this is important. And we know that gigantic non-denominational church in town is going to have a fancier event. They're going to have a helicopter and drop eggs or do something. But not everybody wants that, and but probably don't do it at the same time. If you want maximum potential for non-members, do not link it to the Easter service. Do not make them think they have to come to the Easter service to be part of the Easter egg hunt. You have to decide whether to have candy. Some people, don't have candy. They just have toys. Other people do it, whatever. Promotion, social media, of course. And if you boost, and I think this is probably a good thing to boost, target parents. In that explanatory video tells you how to do it. I like yard signs for this. And I know they're more expensive, but ask permission and post near the daycare centers. People, a standard poster in a daycare center is not going to accomplish a lot because the parents don't go in. They swing by, drop their kids off. They swing by, pick their kids up. So you want to have the yard sign where they'll see it when they're stopped, if you can possibly do it. And what I found, at least around here, is most daycare centers are fine with that. Another place to put it is where parents are going to pick up their kids from elementary school in particular. And if you want, hand out invites. You can get away with, you probably couldn't get away with doing this every day, but like on Wednesday before your Saturday Easter egg hunt, you walk down the line of parents and offer being the key thing, flyer that explains what's going on. You probably won't get in any trouble for that. And if somebody comes by and says stop, you stop. No big deal. Another place to put them is places where parents might come. The YMCA, gyms, libraries. And those are places where posters might work, particularly gyms, if they allow you to put community announcements up. Libraries almost all do, YMCAs typically do. And if you have a child care center in your church, please don't forget them. Posters, I think, are less effective, but it depends on your area and where you can put them up, and they're fairly easy to do. The resource investment is driving to the YMCA and putting it up. So it might be worth the effort. But the best by far is have your kids invite their friends. And this could be grandkids. It doesn't have to be people that come every Sunday. I would make up simple invite cards like they might use to invite somebody to a birthday party. Use heavy paper, at least index weight. Otherwise, it gets crumpled up in the 7-year-old's pocket and it's useless. Also, take those exact same cards and turn them into invite cards for your members to give to anyone they know with kids. Do they know people in their neighborhood have kids? Hand them something and say, hey, your kid might be interested in this. Personal invites always work best. Continuing in that, again, don't waste your time if you're not going to seek contact information, and this sentence should continue, and follow up. If the only people you want to come back are current members, and don't waste your effort promoting. Good way to handle it is have a reason for people to come back to a central point after they've picked up most of the eggs. Maybe you're handing out a special prize for those who came or something like that. And when they're at that central point, offer the opportunity to stay in touch. It's an offer, and I always say phrase it as an offer. We would love to be able to stay in touch with you about things happening around here. If you're interested here, fill out this form. It's a great time to make an announcement. Most eggs are found. They stand up and say, hey, we're so glad you're all here. Don't forget to come over here and get you a special prize. And we would love to keep in touch with you. A clipboard with a sign-up list will not work well. It just won't, even if people are encouraged. Because once one person's filling it up, all the other people can't get to it. Cards are better that you can just hand out. This is a good place if you have a church brochure, which I'm not 1,000, I don't think is top priority. But if you have one, this would be the place to hand them out. Some promotions other than Easter egg hunt. And I've got lots of previous Zooms and information. Ask me for copies. One very useful thing to do is create a QR code. That's that little square code with all the funny black marks on it that you see from time to time. And create a page on your website. This is called a landing page that has information about all the activities this week. And the QR code should direct people to that, not the front page of your website. They want to know what they want to know. They don't want to see the front page. Now, you can have a button that takes them back to the home page. That's fine. That's wonderful. I've mentioned posting and boosting. If you want to do Instagram, that's fine, except it takes a different format in most cases. So unless somebody is already good at Instagram, it's probably not worth trying to learn how to use it. The other thing about Instagram is you're not sure where it's going to be shown. It'll be shown to your friends, but beyond that, it may be shown in Iowa or something, and you don't know. So there's real question there. And remember, press release, remember the key question is it news? Your worship schedule is not news, but you can submit it to the community calendar, and again, Easter egg hunt or something. But when you do that, remember the first 3 to 4 words are what matter. You've got to get their attention in 3 to 4 words, that the headline, or they're not going to read on. As I said before, Good Friday, Monday, Thursday are good possibilities for posts, questions, boosts. But in doing the press release, remember your best opportunities are weeklies, not dailies. But aim for March 28th, well in advance, to give them plenty of time. Ask for the paper I've got on press releases if you don't have it. The labyrinth, the prayer walk, as a prayer walk is good. If somebody, you still occasionally get somebody that calls it black magic, it's Harry Potter. I just call it a prayer walk and ignore them. Again, yard signs, if people are willing, have them put at the members' homes, directing them to the website landing page or the Facebook page. People want to know they'll find people they know there. So this is a way to say, hey, your neighbor is going to our church. And you can move those around, leave them at one person's home for 2 or 3 days and move them to another person's home for 2 to 3 days. Oh, by the way, on yard signs, if you want to start using those long term, the smartest thing to do is 2 days after an election, go out, help to clean up the community, picking up the yard signs, recycle the sign itself and keep the metal, the stands, because that's half the cost of the yard sign when you go to buy one. Facebook events are a great way to provide all the information. Again, ask me, I can show you how to do that. They're very, very easy. And your texting list that I've talked about, don't forget, let's catch them because they are people who are new. All right, promotion budget. Again, you're not going to do everything. You're not going to send a post out on everything. Again, recruit 3 to 5 people to encourage sharing and posting. It's free. I will match up to $50. Out of my own money, I will match you up to $50. Churches under 30 ASA, and I'm not rigid on that. I will reimburse you your first $50. I am that passionate about helping you out. One way to get it is ask for special donations. Promise that you'll give them a report. And if you'd like to see what kind of information you can hand them, let me know. I'd be happy to send you one. Kind of ballparky, $0.50 per account that sees the post. So for $20, about 1,300 non-members will see that post. So if you explain it that way, people might be more interested in contributing $20 or more. Again, pick what's most important. My thinking, if it's families, look to the Easter egg hunt. The second priority for me is the strange words. I don't know. I go back and forth whether I would boost Easter itself. Palm Sunday, yes. I'm more inclined to do Palm Sunday than Easter because everybody knows you have an Easter service. And if they want to come, It's easy enough to find what time it is. Now, if you're doing something special, we on one of our Palm Sundays, we actually had a donkey coming up the driveway with somebody riding on it. If you do something like that, that's great. I don't know what you do on Easter like that, but I typically spend $25 to $30 per booth. So what I said before, you might ask for $30 rather than 20. And I typically keep the geographic area fairly small. And by that, I mean, most of your people are going to drive 20 minutes or less to get to your church. So turn that into miles and you can have a pretty good indication of where you should advertise. Yes, somebody drives 50 miles, but that's a fairly small group of new people. Get the contact information. I'm sorry I keep saying that, and then follow up. But that is by far the most important thing you can do. Okay, you'll be getting stuff in the soon that of an idea that around Earth Day, which is April 22nd, the Blessing of Gardens and Festival, great opportunity to reach out. It's unfortunate it comes so close to Holy Week and all you're doing now. It's similar to the Blessing of Animals if you've done that. The key thing to do, and I'll be talking about this in the first Zoom on this, and the information's there how to register, is to find out, can be done by one person in a couple days. It doesn't take a lot of effort. You put all the effort after Easter. But what you need to do is try to find other people other groups to be involved with the Blessing of Gardens. So you might ask a nursery. You might go to Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever the home place is in your area, and ask them for donations. Ask them to donate a bush. Most of them will do it. And then you can either raffle that off beforehand to build attention and interest, or raffle it off at the event. If you raffle it off beforehand, do it in such a way you get their contact information. If you raffle it off during the event, one of the nice things about that is they got to be present to win. And second of all, and we talked about this a little at the very beginning, your outreach on your online services. Most of us are doing a poor job, and I don't know yours, I haven't had a chance to look at yours. That what we do is simply a projection of what's happening, and there's no real interaction. And so that doesn't create community. And you can't really create community, but you can really make an effort. I have a 5-minute video. I will send you the link because it doesn't show up well. And I have a tutorial showing how to do this. It is really easy. But let's see, this was not playing this morning. Well, maybe it'll play this time. Let's see. What do you know? It wouldn't play this morning. Let's see if it'll come to play.
The internet and live stream, welcome to you all as well. Today is a beautiful day, a wonderful day, and I want to remind the youth that we are having confirmation right after the service for those of you who are in confirmation, and then regular youth group at 4 o'clock today. So you don't want to miss that. And also today we've got a special guest. Karen Bullock is with the Interactive Resource Center. So Karen, I'm going to invite you to come up. She's going to give us a little tip and talk about the IRC.
I've got like a 3-minute gap or 3-second gap in between the various clips.
Blessed are you. Amen.
Most people are going to stop watching after the sermon, but this is where we can ask for the contact information. Now, this church does music after the sermon. Many churches don't, so it becomes a little more difficult.
God, trusting your wisdom and power revealed in Christ crucified. Amen.
Each of the QR codes goes to a different page on their website. This one goes to one about asking for your prayer requests. The other one goes to a contact page, and you'll see a third one in a second. This is a Lutheran church, by the way. Just happened to be the one I had to. Some churches have a opposition to asking for financial as part of the service. That's, of course, your decision. Me, I think if you're walking by asking with a basket, you're asking for support. You're asking for money. I think there's one more, if I remember right. Oh, no, there's a couple more. This is important because a lot of inactive or former Roman Catholics and Baptists and others don't know they can take communion at an Episcopal church or the other sacraments.
For the healing that springs forth abundantly from this table. Renew our strength to do justice, of kindness, and journey humbly with you. And now the God who faithfully brings forth justice and breaks the oppressor's rod, bless, strengthen, and uphold you today and always. Amen.
Well, let me go down another slide. There you go. All right. And finally, pray. That's not finally, that should be the beginning. And we don't pray that people come to attend our church. We don't pray they be changed. We pray that we be changed to do God's ministry in such a way that we're showing God's love to them, and thereby they decide that this is a community, not a church. Church is an institution. This is a community they want to be part of. All right, let me stop the share and unmute you all. Oh, you need to unmute yourself. I'm sorry. Zoom changed that. So the host cannot unmute everybody. Otherwise, who knows what you're doing when you're unmuted? I can't turn your video back on either. Safety thing. All right, questions, thoughts, comments.
Ken, a reminder that you may need email addresses from some people so you can send out stuff to them. So I didn't get any during the presentation.
If you please put your email address in the chat room. And even if you, Megan, I know I have yours, but Ray and Bob, I don't think I have yours. So just to make sure, please put it in the chat.
You have mine for sure, because I get emails all the time.
Okay.
And Ray and I are together, so rather than having to add that many more names to your list, let Father Ray know that I've asked Mel to research QR code for our website. So I saw that, and okay, we're stepping in the right direction.
Good. They're very, 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 do not pay to do them. Everybody in the world does them for free. but of course there'll be ads saying, pay us $20 and we'll do a QR code for you. Do not do that. And as far as that video, it is really very, very, very easy to do. Basically what you do, and I'm going to send out a tutorial. I waited to get a tutorial until I could find somebody who worked in small churches to put one together specifically for small churches. But basically what you do is you set up each of those texts, and when it comes time, you say, turn it on, turn it off. That's the extent of the technical skill you need. So it really is easy. And if anybody knows any graphic program like Canva or any of those, that's the easiest way to do the text. There are other ways to do it, but that's the easiest way to do the text.
On that video from the Lutheran Church, was that Facebook Live they were doing, or?
Yes.
Okay, so you can do that with Facebook Live.
Yeah. Basically what you do, you have this program called OBS. Something broadcasting system. Now I forget what it is, but anyway, and you turn that on and say you want to go Facebook Live, and that's the only additional thing you need to do is turn OBS on, and it's a free program. My two favorite words are free and easy.
Right.
That may be what Zach and Nick are using.
It could be. It's a fairly common one.
We don't put messages like that up very often, I don't think.
I don't. Well, we haven't been, but I'm not sure if it's just hadn't thought about it, because I know during our service, I do usually the announcements, and I'll mention stuff, but that there's a welcome packet, and where it asks us to sign in. We also mention welcome the guests watching today, and those present. And then at the offertory, we mention if you're watching at home, we actually have PayPal on our website, and we've been really blessed during COVID. Our actual income went up. So the first year we applied for the little grant for salaries. Second year we weren't eligible because we had made too much money. So that part was working. It's now trying to, but then remembering that there's folks out there watching, and I like that, having add those things rather than simply saying them. They have it, and at the end again, remind folks, hey, if you like to keep in contact, very unobtrusive way to do it.
And then once you get their contact information, you can stay in touch.
Oh yeah, and that's I like as you periodically through your thing put about ask for it and then follow up. Those are the two key things.
If anybody's taken a stewardship training, they say you won't get anything you don't ask for.
Yep, you got to make the ask. I learned that distributing. Then one of our older members ended up being her executor, and had never thought. Well, she left some to St. George's, but I worked with our Episcopal Community Services. She left 20 grand to the Episcopal Community Services in the diocese she had come from, but I didn't make the ask.
Yep.
And we got what I asked for. So, yep, I learned that one. You got to make the ask.
You got to make the ask. That's right. That's absolutely true. And as I said, I like to make it an offer. And, most of the time we say, if you'll fill out this form, we'll send, so the first thing we do is ask them to do something. I would much rather start by saying, we want to give you something. And to do that, we need your information.
Yep.
Just a different feel.
Okay. Well, we would like to keep you informed.
Yeah.
I like your either email or I like the thing about just put your first name and text it to this number.
That's
very simple, something simple to them. And I know trying to fill out something while you're in the pew doesn't always work, or if you're out at the Easter egg hunt, but you've always got this with you. And so,
have you seen the little short video? It's 30 seconds long of what the worship leader might say to encourage people to fill it out, and you can, okay, I will send it to you. Basically, and what I've found works well is there's a minute or two after the piece where you're trying to get people to settle down.
Yeah.
And this is a great time to say, and a special welcome to anyone who's new with us. We'd love to, and that also makes people settle down, or it encourages them to.
Yeah.
Most places you just wait for the organist to go, and then they settle down.
Ken, I had a question on the Easter egg hunt. We've had it on Easter Sunday between the two services. And from what you're saying, that unless you really promote it as a standalone event that happens to be between the two services, that could be a hard sell if they think it's contingent on attending worship first or afterwards.
Yeah. And if you really push the fact, come just for this, it's better to have it totally separate. But if you're going to do it that time, certainly make it very clear you're not expecting them to necessarily attend service. And you might say something like, you're certainly welcome to attend, but it's not required.
Yeah.
Or something. I wouldn't be subtle. Shirley's laughing at that. She says, I don't have a subtle bone in my body. But I would not be subtle about it. I'd say you're not required.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And we might consider, we've never had it on Holy Saturday, but that would be a possibility or something like that.
Some people have a real objection to having it on Holy Saturday because it's that day is for different deals.
Liturgically or whatever that maybe.
Now, if you don't have a Easter Saturday service, an Easter vigil, maybe doing it late in the day on Saturday might be a reasonable compromise.
Yeah. No,
because you're kind of into Easter.
Yeah.
Although you can't do it after sundown.
Yeah, we stopped doing the vigil. We had an ecumenical vigil service we were doing with the Lutheran Church. We stopped it during COVID, and I'm leery of resuming it, probably because of the energy it takes and the quick turnaround from Easter Eve to Easter morning, but also from a standpoint of reaching out to people who are not church people. The Great Vigil is not a hot seller. People don't get it.
No.
You have to be, even church people don't get it.
No.
And often aren't interested. It's not like Christmas Eve, which kind of sells itself. People, they kind of know what that is. You say the Great Vigil or Easter Eve service, your average person just gets a blank stare.
Yeah. Well, and that, there's lots of research which indicates that Easter has lost its place in society as one of those must-dos.
I think
Christmas, still to some extent, but nowhere near what it used to be. That's one of the reasons if I've got a very limited advertising promotion budget, I would think a couple times about using it on Easter services, because they know you have an Easter service and they find out the time real easy if they're interested. And I'm not sure just putting another paid post up saying we have an Easter service is gonna grab their attention. If you talk about what's a Maundy, I think that'll grab their attention. Megan's saying they do the baptism at the Great Vigil, and that's common. In fact, there are those who would argue that is actually the ancient tradition, and that certainly brings in some people. One of the things I've learned, and too late to some extent, is baptisms, weddings, and funerals. I quit preaching to the couples and preached to the unchurched that came in because of that event. Yeah. The baptism will have a few family members that don't go to church. Now, I still mention the baptism and all that but I focus it. I try to think about what is this saying to somebody. This is the first time they've been to church in 6 years. What am I? A friend of mine preached the absolute best funeral service I've ever heard. He basically did a eulogy for this man, talking about how his life was a ministry. And then about 2/3 of the way through, he took 45 seconds and told the good news.
Yeah.
And then he went on to continue with the eulogy thinking. So the people who were there, and it turns out it was probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the people did not take communion. So, they were, well, some of them were Baptists and, just that's not in their tradition. But a lot of them were unchurched, and he did a great job.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought about that. What I started doing late in my ministry, late in my rectorship, is in my last meeting with the particularly young couples, but not just, I asked them to tell me about the guests they were inviting. And I heard those stories, and then I could shape some of my sermon, which is, very short, obviously.
Ken, I need to go. My dog is bugging me. I think it's stopped raining enough.
Okay.
He expects to go out for a walk this time of day. So I think I'm going to excuse myself.
Yeah, I need to cut
Thank
and
you
run
very
also.
much. And please, I will forward your emails to me to Bob.
Okay. That's
And,
fine. That's
okay.
great. It's a good way to handle it.
Okay.
And feel free to share it beyond you, two of you.
Yeah, oh, I will. Yeah, no, I've invited several others to this tonight. They weren't able to come, but we're forming a vitality improvement team, to apply for this diocesan program. And whether or not if we don't get admitted, I want to keep that team together to do, the kind of things that you're doing, and so that they'll still be serving that purpose. Well, my dog is very anxious, so I'm going to head out here. But thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. And Bob, let me just say real quick while he's leaving, one of the things I greatly enjoy doing is having a one-on-one with the church. So if you do have a group or you want to just sit down and talk about what's going on and ask questions, specific questions, please know I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm the deacon at St. George's. Ray filled me in about what you're doing, and my kindness. Thanks. I loved, some of it was sort of things that I knew, but it's nice hearing it again and really starting to focus and what our purpose is not to get more people. It's to our mission and vision statement, part of it is that our community knows that God has come near. The kingdom is near.
That's right on.
If we stick with that thought, I think it'll all work. So, okay, well, I'm our chief cook and bottle washer, so I need to get starting on dinner or I'm going to have an unhappy family. So, okay, well, again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For this. Enjoy it, and I look forward to future ones.
Okay. Enjoyed meeting you.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Thanks. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night, Ken.
All right. Bye-bye. Say hi to the kids.
Bye-bye.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Charlotte's she gets to listen to a lot of our meetings. She's a next generation vestry.
Good. Tell her I want to hear any comments and ideas. If you have an idea,
Okay.
please tell me. I'll bet you have
Okay,
good
we'll work
ideas.
on some. She has pretty good ones.
Good. Wonderful. Look forward to hearing them.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.